How's it going, guys? It's me, Alistair, and today I want to do a little vlog. This vlog, I'm not going to talk about video games, which is kind of crazy because every other video I do, I talk about video games. Now this one, I'm going to talk a little bit about the aviation industry. The aviation industry is the first industry I ever kind of really got into professionally. Well, the telecom industry, but really the aviation industry is the first one that I actually kind of wanted to get into. And whether you're a pilot, whether you're an aspiring pilot, or even just a person who flies as a passenger, there are a couple of issues. There are a couple of things that are really broken about the industry, which very, very few people are actually aware of. So I thought I might as well summarize them in a quick video. So the issue that I'm talking about, what it really boils down to is there is no money in aviation. If you are an operator of an aircraft or of a fleet of aircraft, you are far more likely to go broke than you are to actually turn a profit. And there are a number of reasons for this. You've got fuel, you've got incidental incidents, and just random damage to the aircraft. You've got just a whole bunch of bullshit is what it really boils down to. And it's not an easy industry to actually crack into. It's grindy. If you're watching this video, then the odds are you actually play video games, because that's what the channel's about. If you play video games, you might be familiar with a game called World of Warcraft. Anybody who's actually played World of Warcraft or knows anybody that has played World of Warcraft, it's grindy. By grindy, I mean you are doing menial, shitty tasks over and over again for hundreds and thousands of hours. You're spending your life to do it. To do what? What's the end? To level up so you can finally start doing more interesting stuff. That is the career of a pilot in a nutshell. Most people think it's pilots are kind of like rock stars. They make a shitload of money, they fly, they bang flight attendants. It's wicked, right? It's not true. The grind that I'm talking about in aviation is the time or the space in between when you get your commercial pilot's license, which is about $40,000 to $50,000, and when you actually get a proper job that is giving you that rock star lifestyle. That grind is, well, by Transport Canada, so in Canada, minimum 1,500 hours. In the States, it's 750, but 1,500 in Canada, 750 in the States. It doesn't mean anything, because when you get to that level, you get what's called a transport license, so you can fly multi-crew aircraft, you can start getting certified on jets and the big stuff. All you've done is you've graduated from being a very moderately sized fish in a very small pond to being the tiniest fish in the ocean. You are now competing with tens of thousands of other pilots who have more experience than you, that are better than you, well, not necessarily better than you, but more likely to get hired than you. You haven't actually accomplished much. You still don't have that great of a chance of actually making it. The problem here is you got that $40,000 to $50,000 investment. It's like a college degree. And on top of that investment, you are making less than no money, essentially grinding your way up to that number, which means that you might not even get anywhere. Jesus, I mean, you could become a flight instructor, you could fly in the bush. Those are your options. You got 200 hours, or in the States, a commercial license is 250 hours. You need to get that. You need to get another 1,000 to 1,250, and you probably won't get paid very well doing it. You might be making less than $10,000 a year, maybe $15,000 to $20,000 if you're an instructor that actually flies regularly, like 20 hours a week. At this level of flying, if you're not in the aircraft and the engine is turned on, you're not getting paid. So if you're in the Great White North and you're snowed in for 3 weeks, you can't fly because your airplane's got 15 feet of snow on it, you're sitting stranded somewhere in the God knows where, you're not getting paid for that. That's the problem. The industry is broken. And it's not necessarily the employer's fault, because, I mean, shit, their aircraft is expensive, they gotta pay insurance, they gotta pay fuel, which is skyrocketing. The pilot, yeah, they'll pay him $25 an hour, but if you're only flying 5, 10, 15 hours a week, I mean, that's a tank of gas and a trip to the groceries to get you through the week. You haven't paid rent. So the industry is broken. So what happens if you have parents that are willing to allow you to live in their house? Well, okay, maybe you'll instruct, maybe you'll teach, and then you'll get a job with a regional carrier. You've made it. You're an airline pilot. Well, not necessarily. Regional carrier pilots make, on average, $20,000 to $30,000 a year. $20,000 to $30,000 a year that's kind of below the poverty line, really. That's pretty bad. Also, you might have loans, you might have all kinds of debts you've accrued, you may be a family. I mean, you can't support that. So what do these guys do? Well, they might work a second job. So now you got a guy who's essentially working full-time for a regional airline, making almost no money, and he has to work in a call center or a bartender, do some other shit job, or drive a taxi. Oh, jeez. Work some shit job just to get the bills paid. Now, most international aviation regulations have a nice little safety net to make sure that the pilots are not overworked. You cannot have more than an 8-hour operational duty day in a lot of places. Sometimes you can have a 10 or a 12, provided that the next day is off. It's like overtime, right? So you can't be not flying for too long, right? Because the odds are you're not going to be flying much because the weather's shit, or because the plane's broken, or for whatever reason your duty day cannot exceed a certain amount. Fair enough. The aviation regulations have saved the day. Well, not necessarily. They cannot control whether or not you work a second job. Do you moonlight as a bartender, or a male stripper, or as a female stripper? Maybe you drive a taxi. Who knows? You're working longer hours. The authorities cannot regulate as to whether or not you have a second job. So then, what does that mean? Well, you start hearing all these stories about both pilots falling asleep, and the air traffic controllers are screaming over the radio into their earpieces, trying to wake them up, saying, guys, you've like flown over the airport that you're trying to land at, and you're like 3,000 miles in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. Happened in Hawaii. It's happened in kind of like, I think it happened in Michigan recently. It's happened a number of times. Why? Because they didn't sleep. Why didn't they sleep? Because they weren't getting paid enough to survive. These are the guys that are flying you from one airport to the other. You buy your plane ticket, you get on the plane, you see the pilots, they're looking like this. They're not getting paid enough. They're working 2-3 jobs. They're living on credit. They're hoping against all odds that maybe somehow a really big airline will start paying them the real bucks. You know, that's 1% of pilots. Now, I don't want to come across as being overly negative. I mean, I know a few guys who have actually gone and kind of made it, and I probably know 50 or 60 others that haven't. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, this is an industry that really chews people up and spits them out. I mean, it chewed me up and spat me out. Well, I kind of spat myself out. I mean, I kind of cut my losses and kind of got out before I just got hopelessly in debt, because a lot of pilots I know get hopelessly in debt. Canada's bad, the US is bad. You know, it's kind of parallel to the developmental stage of a country. If the country is developing, let's say India, let's say China, developing countries where there's extreme amounts of modernization, a lot of investments, a lot of liquid cash to be invested into growing infrastructure. Those are not bad places to try to hack your way into being a pilot. It's not. It's also not a bad way for any entrepreneurial person to go and start businesses, because it's a growth market. Generally speaking, the world economy will go up, it'll go down. I mean, right now we're kind of in a bit of a slump. I mean, look at the EU, the States, Canada's in the shitter. Most Canadians don't realize it, but Ottawa's in the shitter. So you have some industries where they're kind of recession resistant or recession proof. I mean, I was talking to a guy who's an accountant. He said it's recession proof because rich or poor, people need accountants. Fair enough. Then you have the industries which are not only not recession proof, but, you know, whether the world is booming or whether the world is collapsing economically speaking, the aviation industry will always show quite a few companies circling the drain at any given time. Any time since the Wright brothers started flying and companies have risen, and become big and rich and powerful, from that moment forward, at any given time, there are companies that are circling the drain. Most of the time, they just got bought out, merged with other companies. Most of the American Airlines is an American airline, but the airlines from the United States, most of them have conglomerated into a massive blob of airlines because individually they cannot survive. And even still, they're kind of like almost not surviving at times. It's not necessarily the right industry for people like, say, me, who kind of like, I love flying airplanes, but I would much rather have a house and not be claiming bankruptcy or just completely broke. I mean, I don't want to live with my parents till I'm 40. I don't want to grind and grind and grind and grind for years and years to wake up one day in my 40s poor and realizing that I just won't make it. I've met too many flight instructors who, yeah, they're good instructors, but the reason that they're flight instructors isn't because they wanted that per se. They wanted to be an airline pilot, but that didn't happen. It wasn't in the cards, and as the years went on, they ground and ground and grinded and grinded, and they thought they were actually getting somewhere, and like, oh shit, I'm 50. Well, I guess I spent my life grinding. So, I'm not into World of Warcraft. I'm not into grinding. God, some people might hate this. I'm not into that. If you're an aspiring pilot, if you're a new pilot, if you're a person who wants to make a career in this industry, don't listen just to me. I'm a naysayer. I'm biased. I'm jaded as shit. I've done a lot of flying. I've flown all over North America and the Caribbean. Been to a lot of places, seen a lot of things, seen the true face of the aviation industry. My recommendation, if you want to pursue a career as a pilot, don't listen to me. Absolutely, go ahead and do it. I'm not going to tell you not to. But first of all, I'll give you a couple pieces of advice. One, if you have post-secondary education, if you have a university degree, don't do it through a college. If you're fresh out of high school, you have no education, the college programs will give you a diploma. It'll look good on a resume. You got post-secondary education and you're a pilot. That's great. But if you have a degree, it's kind of redundant and it'll cost you an extra $15,000. 2, be very careful with flying clubs. They're cliquey and they can be very douchey. They're not the nicest people in the world. They're flying clubs. They're not businesses. Unfortunately, some of them are. Some of them are legitimately run proper, real businesses, but some of them you'll walk in there and you'll see like kind of a bunch of pilot bros hanging out, and you'll either fit right in with them or you'll be ostracized. It happens. It happens a lot. Talk to anybody who's a veteran in the industry and they will tell you that flying clubs can be pretty bad. Number 3. Is that 3? Yes. Number 3. Be very wary of a flying school that will push you to do an instructor rating. Flight instructor is a good way to build up the hours to get to grind. It's possible to grind quickly, it's possible to grind slowly, but it's a good way to build up those hours. However, a common practice in the aviation industry is that the flying club will say, do your instructor rating with us and you'll get a job with us to teach. Sounds great. Yeah, it sounds great, but here's the thing. They are trying to get you in bed. That's all it is. They're going to talk sweet to you. They're going to get you in bed. They're going to take about, in Canada, an instructor rating costs about between $6,000 to $10,000. And then, they'll put you on the roster. They'll let you fly with 1, maybe 2 students, and, you're gone because of pick a reason. They will just get rid of you because they don't want you. They just wanted your money. They got it, and you're gone. So, those are my 3 warnings. If you are young and your parents are willing to let you live with them, you go to flying school like in your backyard, that's not a bad thing to do. I mean, you don't have to worry about your own overhead. You don't own a house. You don't have a mortgage. You might be the right person to try to get into this industry. If you've got children, you've got a family to feed. It's a huge risk with no promise of actually getting there at the end, and you're not going to make any money for probably, I would say, at least 3 to 5 years. You're gonna make less than what is considered minimum wage. You're gonna make way below the poverty line. If you get onto a regional carrier, you might be having to do that for 1 to 2 years to build up a little bit more experience on a pretty bigger airplane. Then finally you might be able to get yourself into a major airline. At which point you'll be making 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, depends which airline. And that's good money. And you will be one of the few that actually make it. So, that's my rant, that's my vlog. Thanks a lot for watching, and if your pilots look really tired the next time you get on an airplane, go grab them a coffee or something, because you don't want both of them falling asleep at the same time. One of them at a time, not so bad. If they both fall asleep, the plane will keep flying in a straight line until it runs out of gas. It happens. It happens. Alright. Take care.